The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Monday, August 11th. I hope you all had a fantastic weekend and are ready for a new week. I know I am. Good weekend in Lisbon, Portugal, and it's hot today, though. Today is hotter than it's been since we got here. But yeah, great weekend. Got to hang out with some local objectivists. That was a lot of fun. And we got to go see an opera. We got to see La Traviata. And it was outdoors. And didn't know it was going to be outdoors. And it was actually cold. Anyway, but it was beautiful. It was very well done. The two main singers were excellent. La Traviata, of course, is one of the great operas of all time. Everything in that opera is beautiful. There's no downtime in that opera. There's no boring stuff in the opera. It's just all intense and just beautifully, gorgeously done from beginning to end. So good. Had a good meal. Had some good meals. Good weekend. Things are going well. All right. Let's jump in. We will be doing shows all this week. Different times. We'll be mixing it up a little bit. So tomorrow and Wednesday, just so everybody knows, we will be doing these shows at 12 o'clock Eastern time, so middle of the day, noon Eastern time. And then we'll be back to closer to 2, 3 o'clock East Coast time, so maybe even later. So it'll move around a little bit depending on the schedule here and what is possible, but yes. Let's see, what did I want to do here? It's a little small. All right, so let's start with the breaking news. Kind of breaking news is that Donald Trump has declared an emergency in Washington D.C., a crime emergency, and as a consequence. He has federalized, basically, Washington, D.C. police and has put National Guards and FBI agents and other federal agents into the streets to support the D.C. police. This is all legal as it stands. There is a Home Rule Act. D.C. is special in that while it is self-governing, ultimately the responsibility for Washington, D.C. lies with Congress. And there is a Home Rule Act which grants the city the kind of the self-governing powers, but it does allow the president to federalize the D.C. police for up to 30 days. Trump, the president, has to provide Congress with written notification of the rationale for taking control over the police within 48 hours. And Congress would have to actually approve any extension beyond the 30 days. So ultimately, Congress is responsible, and it would have to approve this beyond that. So Trump today, in announcing the federal government is taking over the policing function, he basically said that the city of D.C. had been, quote, overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out maniacs and homeless people, unquote. So carnage in the streets of America, we're back to that theme. Now, it is true, Washington, D.C. is one of the most violent cities in the United States, not the most, but one of the most violent cities in the United States, and has been for a very long time. And I'm not talking about the violence that the government inflicts on all of us on a daily basis. I'm talking about regular violence that people understand that, murder, mugging, burglary, and things like that. Carjacking is big, I guess, has been big in D.C. It's one of the worst in the country. nobody has ever done what Trump has done. That is, nobody's ever federalized the police in D.C., so this is unprecedented. My guess is this will go to courts, but I think he's within his power as far as I can tell. I'm not a lawyer, not a legal expert, but it seems like it's within his power. But of course, it's also really, I mean, fundamentally, it's not about crime and it's not about the takeover of D.C. This is political theater. This is political theater on a grand scale. This is Trump diverting attention from everything else, from other problems out there, maybe primarily from Jeffrey Epstein, showing his MAGA followers what a tough guy he is and how he's willing to use federal power in order to achieve their aims, whatever those happen to be, catch pedophiles in the streets of Washington, D.C., I guess. So this is him being macho. It's him being kind of the MAGA guy, him doing what kind of MAGA expects him to do, and it's for them. It's for nothing else. Now, look, there's no question putting the hundreds of National Guard into the street will probably reduce crime. Whether that's sustainable over the long run, it's hard to tell. What you really need is a boost to policing in D.C. What you need is harsher sentencing of criminals in D.C. But the reality also is, and this is important to note, that by pretty much everybody's data, I haven't seen any contradictory data, crime in D.C. is coming down. Violent crime in dropped 35% from 2023 to 2024. And in most categories of crime, at least according to the DC Metropolitan Police, now you can say they cook the numbers, but you can't prove that, and there's no, I don't know what the alternative numbers are. Who has those alternative numbers that we would know? According to the Metropolitan Police, almost every single category of crime is lower in 2025 than it was in 2024. Indeed, by many measures, this year is trending to be one of the least violent years in Washington, D.C., at least recent history. Going back to the 1990s and 1980s. What you have is crime really peaked in D.C. in 2023. It's been going up since 2017, so under Trump, when Trump was president, it went up in 18, 19, 20, 21. It kind of moderated a little in 22 and then spiked up in 2023 in D.C. and then plummeted in 2024 and is down again in 2025. Murder rates being the most, how do you say it? The most objective way to measure these things. Because people who are murdered, it's easy to keep track. A lot of newspapers, for example, keep track of the number of murders in a particular city. So there are ways to kind of verify murder, whereas other crimes are much more difficult to verify, and for somebody outside of the police to track is very difficult. But murder is pretty straightforward. Last year, by this point in August, there had been 112 murders in Washington, D.C. This year, to this point, there were 99 murders, so that's a pretty significant reduction. And if you look at the 20-year chart, it bottomed in 2012, and murder at least is not going to go down this year to 2012 numbers, because already in the first 7.5 months, you've had more homicides than all of 2012. But it does look like this year will go down to rates closer to 2019, maybe 2018, which were fairly low, but not as low as 2012. DC generally is one of the cities with the most crime in the United States. It's not number one; it's kind of number 5 or 6 per 100,000, depending on when you actually measure and how you measure it. Again, according to police reports, there are There were fewer property crimes this year than last year during the same period. Fewer burglaries, fewer, let's see, 2025, 2024 in terms of car thefts about the same. Or slightly down, looks like slightly down. And generally theft is down. Again, these are numbers that are much harder to verify than as I said, homicides, which are much easier. In terms of one of the big issues in DC are carjacking. If you look at those numbers, it's the carjackings are what caused the increase in homicides in 2023. A lot of the homicides were associated with carjackings. In the summer of 2023, you had 140 reported in June 2023 and another 121 reported in July 2023. Those kind of spiked. But then they have declined dramatically in 2025 as compared to 2023. So only 36 only. 36 compared to 140 in June, 16 compared to 121 in July of this year. So again, almost every measure, things have come down significantly. Here's Donald Trump. The murder rate in Washington today is higher than that of Bogota, Colombia, Mexico City. Some of the places that you hear about as being the worst places on earth, much higher. This is much higher. The number of car thefts has doubled over the past 5 years. The number of carjackings has more than tripled. Murders in 2023 reached the highest rate probably ever. They say 25 years, but they don't know what that means because it just goes back 25 years. Can't be worse. Sometimes Donald Trump comes out with sentences that just, they don't add up grammatically, but that's just reality. Anyway, if you look at crime rates in these other places, let's see. Let me just see if I can get this. Yeah, whether any of that data about Mexico City and Bogota is true or not, I don't know. We will have to check. But again, 2024, 2025 crime rates down a lot. In the same speech, I guess, Donald Trump went after a bunch of other cities and complained about Chicago and about Los Angeles and about New York and about all these cities. And about, of course, in Baltimore, which is not far from D.C. Again, the numbers in Baltimore are quite striking. The homicide rate in Baltimore this year is down 62%. This is the lowest homicide rate since 1978. 1978. And as I've told you repeatedly, I mean, generally, violent crime in the United States is in decline. That's true. In New York. New York is not that violent at all in terms of homicide. Maybe it's unpleasant because of homelessness. Maybe there are more muggings. I don't know. I haven't seen the stats on muggings. But in terms of homicides, New York hasn't been this safe in a long time. It was more violent in the 1970s and in the 1980s and in the 1990s. So. Again, I don't know about LA, but LA is far from being the worst city. What are the worst cities in the United States in terms of murder rates? Again, murder rates are, I think, the best proxy because murders are easy to relatively objectively calculate. It's not up to interpretation. I mean, maybe at the margins, there's some cases that are not clear if it's murder or something else or some other form of death, but at least they died. Anyway, the worst cities are St. Louis, Missouri, Birmingham, Alabama, Memphis, Tennessee, and New Orleans, Louisiana. And it's interesting because there's on Twitter, there's like this battle between Republicans and Democrats. See, the Democrats all saying, these are all MAGA states. Missouri, Alabama, Tennessee, Louisiana, these are all red states. And they have the highest murder rate. You can add to that Jackson, Mississippi, and Cleveland, Ohio, and Kansas City, Missouri, and I don't know if Milwaukee, Wisconsin is like it's neither red nor blue. But these are all red states, and therefore, red states, they're the states with the highest murder rate. And of course, the Republicans point out, the Democrats, oh, no, wait a minute, but they may be red states, but the mayors in all these cities are Democrats. So you get this back and forth constantly between Republicans and Democrats, but the reality is that the South and the Midwest are the places which have the highest crime rates, particularly, again, murder rates in the United States. LA is not on here, Chicago is not on here, and New York is certainly not on here. California, no city in California is on these lists. These are all lists of South and mainly Central, with the exception of, DC is pretty bad, Baltimore has been bad, getting a lot better than on the East Coast. You could argue about what causes murder, what causes crime, but certainly one feature of that is probably lack of policing, and my guess is that the city will blame the state for not giving them enough resources, and the state will blame the city for not using the resources, but that's the reality. And the reality, again, for almost every single one of these cities, not every single one of them, but for almost every single one of them, and certainly with regard to Baltimore and Washington, D.C., is that murder rates have come down significantly. In Baltimore, the claim is that the reason for that is that they have this very progressive Baltimore mayor, Brandon Scott, who has done a lot of with social services and community outreach and all this stuff, and they're taking, the credit is being taken for improving the homicide rates is to all that kind of stuff. But the reality also is another thing that Brandon Scott did, which people don't talk about much. But one of the things they did is they basically identified, and this is true in every city, they identified the few individuals, the small group of people who commit almost all the crimes in the city. It's usually just a few gang members and a few gangs. It's not a huge number of people. The repeat offenders. And what the police in Baltimore have done is they've gone after that small group of people who commit most of the crimes, had gone after them and put them in jail and extended their sentences, got longer sentences for them. And the consequence of that is you've taken the most violent criminals off the streets, and crime has gone down significantly. So whether all the other social services and all the other, call it touchy-feely stuff, works or not, is an interesting debate, and a debate worth having. And it might be the case. There is no question that if you take away the few people commit, again, most of the crimes, and this is true in every city, then you are going to get a reduction in crime, and good for Baltimore for doing that. And I'm always happy to see crime rates come down significantly. Somebody on the chat said, hey, in one of the seasons in The Wire, which is one of the great television shows of all time in my view, and a really smart television, and really, really heart-wrenching at the same time. It's about police in Baltimore fighting the drug gangs, and it gives you the story is told through the perspective of the police, and through the perspective of the drug gangs, and from usually a third perspective. One season it's the unions on the docks, another season it's the schools and what's going on in the schools, another season it's through the perspective of the city hall. And it's just brilliant. It's just the way it represents it, it's brilliant. And one of the things that they show on the show is the degree to which during the show, because the mayor incentivizes the police, you get bonuses or you get some goodies if if you reduce crime. So what happens is that the police just don't reduce crime. They just, tinker with the numbers. And they basically show a reduction in crime by tinkering with the numbers. And there's no question that happens. But just like in The Wire, and just like in real life, it's not sustainable. You can do it for a while, and ultimately you get caught. Because, and this is the one thing the press are pretty good at, and that is tracking crime, following crime, and seeing discrepancies between what the police are reporting and what reality is. And people have done that and tried to do that with the police reports. The FBI, if you remember, what was that, a year or two ago, redid their numbers. It wasn't a big revision, but it was a revision. They have to revise these things because once the data comes in and once the data is public, people will find out. And even in The Wire, yes, people find out in the end, and there's a lot of political price to pay for it. So I would say that yes, any particular report about crime declining in a particular city, you've got to be a little suspicious of. But if it's in city after city after city after city around the country, and if it's year after year after year, it's probably a trend. It's probably true. If it's one city and it's going against the national trend, okay, not so sure. But the reality is that we're living in some of the least violent times in American cities on record. And I know you don't want to believe that, and it's not because Donald Trump, this is a trend that started before him. I know you don't want to believe that because you want to believe the world is falling apart. You want to believe that Trump is right, that there's carnage in the streets of America. By the way, 2016, when he said that, he said it, I think, when he was inaugurated, so it was 2017. Again, one of the most least violent years in American history. But, whatever violent crime exists in D.C., it's probably higher than it should be. And deploying National Guards into the streets probably reduce crime. Will there be bad consequences of this? I mean, the FBI and even the National Guards are not used to policing. Will there be rights violations? Will there be abuses of power? We'll wait and see. We don't know. But there will be, I'm sure, just having armed people in the streets will reduce crime. Is that how we want to live? Is a question. Rather than, let's say, significantly increasing the budget of the Washington, D.C. police force and allowing them to hire additional police working to reduce crime that way. Whatever way, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the months to come. And it's really going to be interesting to see what Congress does and whether Trump follows the letter of the law and submits something to Congress and whether Congress then votes on this or if it's just going to be a 30-day thing. All right. But it's just amusing because there's so many things going on right now in the world, in Trump world and in MAGA and in the world and in our economy and everywhere else. The extent to which this theater is striking. All right, let's jump in with what's the next topic? Yes. Did you know we had an export tax in the United States? We are not taxing companies. Well, not all companies. Only some companies. Only the companies Donald Trump chooses to tax. We are now taxing exports. That is, the government is taking a percentage of the amount of money that companies sell goods overseas. I don't know that we've ever had an export tax in the United States. I think this is new and unprecedented. This is something that Donald Trump has invented, made up all by himself, all by his lonesome, I guess, or maybe somebody in his administration came up with this. It's a brilliant idea. I mean, basically, a company comes to here's the way it works, right? Here's the way it works. The president of the United States bans a certain product from being exported. I don't know, let's say for national security reasons. So you can't sell this product for national security reasons. And then the company comes to the White House begging, please, we really want to sell this product. And the president says, okay, I will give you permission to sell this product, but I want 15%. Now, it's not I personally, I want the government to get 15%. The US government is going to be your partner in exporting. And if you do that, I will give you permission. Permission you, by the way, had just 6 months ago, which I took away from you, and now I'll give it back to you if you give me 15%. And what about the national security issue? Well, it doesn't matter. Let's not think about that. Let's pretend that doesn't exist because I want the 15%. I mean, all you can do is laugh because this is basically extortion. It's unprecedented for the United States government to act this way towards its businesses. It is making a mockery of the whole issue of national defense, and it's stunning that nobody's commenting on this. It's making a mockery. So here's what actually happened, right? About a few months ago, the Trump administration declared that NVIDIA and AMD were no longer allowed to sell a low-grade, relatively low-grade AI chip to China. They said you can't sell it to China. Not allowed because we don't want China to gain on us from an AI perspective. This is national security, and they can use this chip in defense industry and so on. So you're not allowed to sell the chip, right? And this is a chip that is probably in demand, and NVIDIA counted on it to be able to make a lot of money, and so did AMD. AMD is a competitor to NVIDIA, a long-time microchip producer. So NVIDIA and AMD went to lobby Donald Trump, and they lobbied, and then today, was it today or maybe it was the weekend or maybe Friday? Basically, the Trump administration declared that yes, it was last week, end of last week, they declared that yes, NVIDIA and AMD can sell their AI chips to China, and everybody was scratching their head and was like, okay, well, they've decided it's not really a national security threat anymore. Anyway, it was disclosed over the weekend that as part of the deal where the president allowed them to sell the chips to China, the US government gets a 15% kickback. Now, I know everybody's calling this a kickback, but really it's just an export tax. An export tax. So I understand Trump wanting to tax imports because he doesn't like trade deficits. But taxing exports is like, no, if you tax something, you get less of it. If you tax exports, you get less exports. Now, it's only these chips. It's not exports completely, but maybe if he discovers that by taxing exports, government revenues go up, maybe he'll start taxing other exports as well. I wonder if that's covered by the Constitution. How is this constitutional? How can the government unilaterally, how can the U.S. unilaterally choose to demand kickbacks from some companies but not others? On what basis? On the basis that it's a national security threat? But if it's a national security threat, don't you want to ban the export completely? I'm really struggling with the logic of this. What is this? I mean, it's just, they pull this out of nowhere. They just make this up as they go along. What the hell? Let's get a couple of $2 billion from chips, and we can claim we reduced the deficit. The budget, the federal spending deficit, not the trade deficit. And it suddenly seems illegal to me. I don't know who would sue. I guess NVIDIA could sue, but they don't want to piss off Trump, so they're not going to sue. But it's clearly illegal. There's no legal basis that the American government could do this. Hey, we're going to take away your ability to sell something, and then we'll give it back to you if you give us a cut. I mean, this is Trump acting like a mafia boss. Well, I mean, almost everything he does is acting like a mafia boss. Now, Chinese are supposedly going to rush to buy the NVIDIA H20. There's a huge pent-up demand, supposedly, and the company expects to sell a lot of these chips and therefore pay the U.S. government quite a lot of money. And the only challenge is that the Chinese government is now saying, wait a minute, these H20 chips, how do we know you're not using them to spy on us? How do we know they don't have back doors and all kinds of other ways in which the NSA can use them to disable our weapon systems and, I don't know, blow up the, what was it, like the beepers, blow us up through the beeper system. So the Chinese are reluctant. We'll see. I mean, maybe this is just a negotiating tactic. Now that the U.S. government is benefiting from the sale of these chips, maybe this will be used in the American-Chinese negotiations to try to get Trump to give in more. We will see how this goes. But again, remember, just 2 weeks ago, this was national security. Couldn't do it. Couldn't sell them. But now we can sell them if you get extra cut. By the way, these are not the best chips. These are not the most advanced chips. They're like fourth best in terms of the top of the line chips that are going to China. But again, just a week ago, they were deemed a national security threat to send it to China. And now it's okay because U.S. government gets a cut. Let's see. This is more of the kind of economic fascism that we're seeing out of this administration. We saw the golden share in the U.S. Steel, Nippon Steel purchase of U.S. Steel. We saw the U.S. government take an equity stake, an actual ownership stake in a rare earth company earlier, a few weeks ago. We saw Trump last week call for the CEO of Intel to resign, right? Saying he was highly conflicted and somehow a Chinese agent or something like that. And of course, Trump never explained why he should resign or provide any evidence of that. Supposedly, CEO of Intel is going to meet with Trump this week to try to convince him no, that he shouldn't resign. But everybody's calling this, I look at the headlines, and everybody's calling this an unusual arrangement. Unusual. It's never been done before. And this is the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, being very creative. I mean, basically understanding what makes Trump take money and basically, finding a way to get him incentivized to allow NVIDIA to sell the chip in China. I guess NVIDIA's profit margins, and they believe they can sell it at a high margin because there's no real competition other than, I guess, the AMD chip, the MI308. So he can get a good margin on it, he can still make money off of it. It's good for NVIDIA, it's good for AMD, and so they're fine. Generally, NVIDIA CEO has been, sucking up to Trump on the one hand and also sucking up to the Chinese on the other hand because he wants to make sure the Chinese will actually buy it. So he's been politicking quite a bit. One of the real sad things about I don't know Jensen Huang. I mean, he's obviously an extraordinary CEO, what he's done with NVIDIA. But it is sad how much time, how much effort, how many resources American companies are now spending on sucking up to their own government instead of the time and resources and effort and focus and initiative going on, engaged with actually building and making stuff. All right, given that we're talking about tariffs, I just have to read you this. This is just so amazingly shocking and stupid that I can't help myself. Anyway, so you know that the IEEPA tariffs are being challenged in court, and they're in front of a appellate court now. The International Trade Court ruled against the Trump administration and ruled his use of the IEEPA unconstitutional or in violation of the law. And he has appealed this, so it has gone to the appellate court, and the appellate court is now reviewing this. The Trump administration, this is sent a letter. This is from John Swire, the Solicitor General, and Brett something, Assistant Attorney General. So this is a formal letter to the Clerk of a Court, U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit. So this is their argument against declaring this bill, Trump's use of the IEEPA, unconstitutional. You know, this is what it says. I mean, I'm skipping in the first paragraph, but he says, suddenly revoking the president's tariff authority under the IEEPA would have catastrophic consequences for our national security, foreign policy, and economy. The president believes that our country would not be able to pay back the trillions of dollars that other countries have already committed to pay, which could lead to financial ruin. Now note, pay back trillions of dollars. What trillions of dollars? Who's paid us trillions of dollars? Now, it does say that other countries have already committed to pay. All you'd have to say is, all right, if the IEPA is ruled unconstitutional, you don't have to pay those trillions of dollars. But where is the trillions of dollars we have to pay back? I mean, they literally make stuff up in a formal legal document. They're creating a completely arbitrary fantasy that does not exist. It's shocking and just, I mean, this is the United States government. It's acting like, and I'm sorry guys, but this is the reality. It's acting like a banana republic. And it's treating its courts as if they're infantile, you know, and idiots. So I think the court is going to be outraged by this, but we'll see. It continues, other tariff authorities that the president could potentially use are short-term, not nearly as powerful. All that's true. And would render American captive to the abuses that it has endured from far more aggressive countries. Nobody knows what he's talking about here. This is complete nonsensical. He continues. There is no substitute for the tariffs and deals that President Trump has made. 1 year ago, the United States, listen to this, and try to reflect back a year. 1 year ago, the United States was a dead country. This is a formal document to the appellate court. 1 year ago, the United States was a dead country. And now, because of the trillions of dollars being paid by countries that have so badly abused us, America is a strong, financially viable, and respected country again. If the United States were forced to pay back the trillions of dollars committed to us, America could go from strength to failure the moment such an incorrect decision took effect. It's pretty stunning. It's pretty stunning. You know, the United States was a dead country. I mean, this isn't a campaign speech. We're not talking about a campaign speech. We're not even talking about Trump's mumbling in a press conference. We're talking about a formal document signed by the Solicitor General of the United States, submitted to the Court of Appeals of the United States. It goes on. These deals for trillions of dollars have been reached, and other countries have committed to pay massive sums of money. I mean, just note the style is this bombast nonsense. There's no trillions of dollars. I mean, the American people are going to pay billions of dollars in taxes. Our taxes have gone up significantly because of tariffs. Foreign countries pay nada, zero, nothing. Maybe foreign companies pay a little bit, but we pay huge tax increases. If the United States were forced to unwind these historic agreements, the president believes that a forced dissolution of the agreements would lead, listen to this, to a 1929 style result. In such a scenario, people would be forced from their homes. Millions of jobs would be eliminated. Hard-working Americans would lose their savings. And even Social Security and Medicare could be threatened. In short, the economic consequences would be ruinous instead of unprecedented success. Sincerely, Solicitor General of the United States of America. It's just unbelievable. So basically, this document is there to say that if the tariffs are appealed, we'll go into a Great Depression and maybe a World War. Who knows? That's 29. And it'll all be the court's fault. Trump tried to save us. We were a dead country. Dead. You guys didn't have work. You were roaming the streets like zombies. Countries all over the world were taking advantage of us, even though we had higher tariffs than they did. And America was just a desert, a killing fields. I mean, it was just horrific. And Raphael is listening to the show while on an airplane. That's the state of the world we live in. I mean, can you imagine? He's up in the air. He left Portugal today. He's on his way to Helsinki and then to South Korea. And he is listening to the show on an airplane. I mean, it's a tough world. It's a very difficult place. Technology's in shambles. And the United States is almost dead. Thank God for Donald Trump for saving us and imposing trillions of dollars on these countries, many of whom don't know what $1 trillion even is. I've never seen $1 trillion and couldn't pass trillions of dollars even if they wanted to. I don't know how to convey the outrage other than this is an administration that is built, its entire edifice is built on lies. It thrives on complete disinformation, complete lying like nobody has ever lied before. Sorry, this beats anything Biden did, anything Obama did, anything George Bush did, anything anybody, any president has done. I mean, he lies all the time. It is the modus operandi. He makes up reality, and he doesn't care because reality has no epistemic meaning to Donald Trump. Reality doesn't matter to Donald Trump. It's just he'll say whatever he thinks will allow him to get away with whatever it is that he feels like doing. So he'll lie about carnage in America and about the horror and the rising crime stats. He'll lie about the tariffs and these trade deals. He'll lie about national security to figure out how to, I don't think this was even premeditated, the bilking of these chip companies. I just think that it was an opportunity that he just took. We are governed by emotions. And this is, I wasn't going to talk about the meeting with Putin. We'll probably talk about it the rest of the week. It's going to happen on Friday in Alaska, of all places. Maybe this is step one for Donald Trump negotiating return of Alaska to Russia. But I'm kidding. He is going to go and meet with Putin and determine basically the fate of Ukraine and who knows the fate of what else, just based on emotion, just based on whatever he feels like. He's surrounded by advisors who will nod their head and smile and whatever they're thinking deep down in their brain, if they're thinking at all, they won't express it. They'll just yes sir, yes sir, yes sir. And he governs by emotion. And we're sending this guy against to negotiate with one of the most ruthless dictators in the world today, with one of the smartest political operatives in the world today. Smartest, I mean, I guess in quotation marks. Putin's going to run circles around him. And if I was Zelensky, if I was Europe, if I was NATO, if I was the Baltic states, if I was Poland, I would be petrified. Absolutely petrified of what is going to happen in Alaska on Friday. And I know that comment is going to lose me subscribers, but I have to tell the truth about what is actually going on in this administration. This is an administration ruled by emotionalism, by the emotions of one man, of Donald Trump, and a bunch of people who advise him who are idiots, who are little power-lusting, idiots, who don't understand economics and don't understand the world and have no conception. There's never been an administration filled with as many incompetents as this administration has. That is the Trump administration. And this is, I warned you of this right before he was elected. So it's just coming to everything I said would happen is indeed just happening. That's all. All right, let's see. All right, you probably saw this in the news because people are apoplectic about this. They're going mad. Yesterday, I guess, Israeli Air Force struck a tent in Gaza, and in the tent were 5 Al Jazeera journalists, including one of the most prominent journalists reporting from Gaza. And I say journalist, please assume there are quotation marks around that. And indeed, the Israeli military confirmed that this was a targeted attack on, oh my God, can you imagine the war crime? They killed a journalist on purpose. I mean, they targeted the Al Jazeera journalist, Anas al-Sharif. Now, not only was Anas al-Sharif part of the propaganda machinery that Hamas has mastered over the last couple of decades, and certainly since the war began, he was a crucial part of the machinery, that propaganda machinery. But Israel has been accusing him for about a year now of being a member of Hamas's military wing, who headed a cell and was linked to rocket attacks against Israel. Now, there is a screenshot of his Telegram account. Now, nobody can find this post, but the Israelis are circulating the screenshot. They claim it's real. He has deleted. Telegram allows you to delete posts, and they're gone. It's not archived anyway. So I actually had ChatGPT look for this and search the archives, and they couldn't find it. So it's easy to delete a tweet. Anyway, the screenshot has been circulated by the Israeli military and Israeli officials. And basically this is on October 7th, 2023, just as the massacre, the raping, the horrors of everything going on in Israel was happening. This is at 3:49, so this is late in the day. It started very early in the morning, remember. And this is Anas al-Sharif, at least according to the screenshot, which, of course, Anas al-Sharif and Al Jazeera claim is fabricated. But this is what it said. It said, 9 hours and the heroes are still roaming the country, killing and capturing. God, how great you are, with 3 love symbols. So this is the guy, I think, who Israel killed. Israel's, again, this is not new. They've been arguing that there are at least 6 Al Jazeera journalists that have been identified in Hamas documents that they found in Gaza as part of Hamas's military organization. It shows that al-Sharif enlisted with the militant group in 2013. Israel has produced these documents. Everybody says they're fake and so on. And if you read the news articles, all the headlines are Israel kills journalists, Israel kills journalists. So, they killed a journalist who's also a member of Hamas. And he deserved to die. And look, more than that, even if he was not a member of Hamas's Al-Qassam brigade, If he's a journalist for Al Jazeera in Gaza, is he a legitimate target? I mean, if you're a journalist in a war zone, are you automatically innocent? Are you automatically, free of being targeted? What if your journalism is putting the lives of soldiers at risk? What if your journalism is a bunch of lies geared toward propagandizing for the sake of the enemy? Is it the case that in war, only people who hold guns are legitimate targets? Well, it turns out that even according to the law of armed conflict, which I'm not a fan of, right? International law generally. But even according to this law, participating in hostilities doesn't only mean holding a gun. It does not only refer to kinetic action. It encompasses any act that is likely to negatively impact the military operations or capacity of a party to the conflict. During the Second World War, for example, this included railway switchmen guiding troop trains. In Afghanistan, it referred to unnamed insurgent spotters on hilltops, radioing troop movements. Can it also refer to so-called journalists who are dealing in propaganda? By the way, there's a good article about this, or post on this, by Andrew Fox. I've mentioned Andrew Fox before. He's a commentator on Twitter. He's a Middle East specialist. He's a former airborne army officer, special forces kind of guy. Was just in Gaza reporting on the distribution of aid. He's smart. I don't agree with him on everything, but he's smart, and this is really good that he's bringing this up. I'm going to read from his article. Al Jazeera is not a neutral observer. It is the flagship media of Qatar, a state that funds Hamas directly through hundreds of millions in cash infused into Gaza. Qatar provides political sanctuary, hosting Hamas leadership openly in Doha, and runs strategic information campaigns, amplifying Hamas's narrative and suppressing their atrocities. This is not independent journalism. It is state-directed strategic communication explicitly designed to influence the conduct of hostilities. And oh boy, has it worked. Hamas's dominance of the information battle space has been on a par with any battlefield victory the IDF has won in Gaza. The role of Al Jazeera's coverage has been decisive. They have had a crucial role in bringing international pressure by saturating global audiences with emotive, selective imagery. This has mobilized street protests, driven foreign policy debates, and generated calls for ceasefires. This pressure has materially constrained Israel's freedom of maneuver, forcing the IDF to alter targeting timelines, suspend operations, and accept increased risks to its own troops. Therefore, by shaping global perception, Al Jazeera has increased the political cost of decisive action by the IDF, giving Hamas operational breathing space and prolonging the conflict. If that is not direct participation in hostilities under the LOAC, which is the, what do we call it, the law of something combat, then nothing is. Right, am I buffering? Am I going out again? Are we getting a buffer? All right, looks like it's back. Anybody in the chat want to let me know how we're doing in terms of the video? I'd appreciate it. By the way, you should follow Andrew Fox. He's really, really good. Let's see. He continues further down. Never mind that Al Jazeera journalists in Gaza double as active terror group members. Above and beyond that, I put it to you that the IDF is within its legal rights under the LOAC to treat Al Jazeera's Gaza-based personnel, facilities, and transmission infrastructure as legitimate military objectives. There is a further argument that Al Jazeera facilities worldwide have become actively involved in the conflict and therefore are legitimate military targets. The conflict in Gaza is not just about bombs and bullets. It also involves hashtags, headlines, and live feeds. In that landscape, an enemy's ability to wage war is not solely measured in rockets and rifles, but also in narrative dominance. Pretending otherwise does not make us more humane. It just leaves one side fighting one arm tied behind its back. The shocking global disinformation storm surrounding Gaza has been notable for its lack of accountability for major news outlets, knowingly lying about the war and spreading falsehoods. If nothing else, establishing a clear threshold for crossing between journalist and targeted combatant might make these deceitful media organizations and reporters reconsider their journalistic standards. This is, Andrew's really good. This is really good. Now, again, I reject the whole idea of international law and the law of armed conflict. I don't think it's legit, but he is absolutely right. These journalists are a legit target given that they are a tool of Hamas, given that they are basically the communication arm of Hamas, not to mention the fact that in this case, Anas al-Sharif was a former member of the Hamas terrorist organization. The amount of lies that the media is telling about Gaza and about about what Israel is doing, and the amount of evasion that is involved is unbelievable. And at the forefront of this is Al Jazeera, which is the main source of most of the myths and disinformation coming out of Gaza. And sadly, the mainstream media just repeats without any criticism and without any analysis. By the way, they're saying that this is the Gaza conflict is the deadliest conflict for journalists ever recorded. I find that hard to believe, but they're saying that let's see, a total of 186 journalists have been killed since October 7th. 180 of them are Palestinians. Now, I wonder how many of those journalists worked for Hamas? How many of those journalists were actively, involved in defending Hamas, in protecting the Hamas regime? How many of those journalists were responsible for the Hamas atrocities towards their own people, never mind towards the Israelis? So, I say, for the most part, good riddance to the Al Jazeera journalists, given how corrupt Al Jazeera is and how anti-life Al Jazeera really is. The fact that the United States still treats Qatar as if it's a friend, it's just astounding. Qatar, the funder of terrorism, the funder of Hamas, but also the previous funder of ISIS. All right, let's see, a few more domestic stories. On Friday, I guess, a guy showed up at the CDC and started shooting through the windows. Luckily, CDC staff were not injured. This is a headquarters in Atlanta. The attack left bullet holes in office windows, and it actually got a Atlanta or DeKalb County police officer killed. The shooter, Patrick Joseph White, was motivated by anti-vax sentiments. He blamed the CDC for the COVID vax, which are for, of course, destroying the world. As RFK has told us, and now has banned all research into, not banned, has withdrawn all funding of all research into mRNA vaccines, which is just a horror. We talked about, I think, that last week. so you're getting these crazies coming out of the buying into kind of the legitimization of all the conspiracy theories by the Trump administration, by the officials in the Health and Human Services, by RFK, the head of Health and Human Services. And this is going to manifest in the crazies taking to the streets. And here's a guy, crazy guy, who took all this seriously and said, no, CDC employees, they have killed people. They are murderers. They need to suffer. And I think you're going to see more things like this. It's horrifically sad. Of course, Kennedy did very little after the shooting. It's gained very little attention, certainly no attention from the Trump administration. They will suppress this. They do not want it. They do not want it up front and center, given that this is now their official policy, is to be anti-vax. Cassidy, Senator Cassidy? I don't know. I just figure we'll remind Senator Cassidy periodically. Sadly, he doesn't listen to the show, of his vote and his responsibility for all this. All right, gay marriage. So there is a case. You remember Kim Davis, who was this clerk? Where was she? In one of the Midwestern states. She was a clerk who refused to actually issue a marriage license to a same-sex couple. She was a Kentucky County clerk, and she was jailed for 6 days in 2015 for refusing to issue a marriage license on religious grounds. Now, she is appealing a $100,000 jury verdict for emotional damage and $260,000 for attorney fees, verdict against her. And in a petition for writ of certiorari filed last month, Davis argues First Amendment protection for free exercise of religion immunizes her from personal liability for denial of the marriage licenses. But more importantly, and I think more fundamentally, she claims that the High Court decision extending marriage rights for same-sex couples under the 14th Amendment, under the 14th Amendment's due process protection, was egregiously wrong. And in the court filing, she says the mistake must be corrected. Now, they also call the decision that was authored by Anthony Kennedy, the majority opinion, legal fiction. And this is now a petition that's gone to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court soon will decide whether to revisit the decision to legalize gay marriage. And it's the first time since 2015 that the court is being formally asked to overturn the landmark marriage decision. And Davis is the only person right now that is seen to have legal standing in this context. Now, my hope is that the court will not take the case, that they will not take it, because if they do, it'll be, I just don't know if there's a majority to uphold gay marriage. I think there is. You got the 3 liberal judges, you got Roberts, and you've probably got Kavanaugh, who would vote for gay marriage. Maybe Barrett, hard to tell with Barrett, of course. But you just never know. And I just hope it never comes to that, because it would be horrific if we went backwards in that way. It would be another, great catastrophe together with Hobbes and abortion in this country if we went backwards. All right. So, completely different topic, rare earths. There's just been a massive rare earth discovery in Wyoming, that shows that we have in the United States, as much rare earth material as we really need, and we could completely reframe the global debate about rare earth material and take away if you will, the Chinese dominance of this. It's the Halleck Creek Project, which is where they're digging and mining for rare earth. It's led by American Rare Earths, which is a company. They've uncovered an incredible 2.63 billion tons of rare earth-rich rock. A find that could easily match the reserves of other countries like even China. They could be bigger. It is potentially a game changer if they can drill for this, if they can actually get it out of the ground, and if they can actually start refining it. So here again is the question about, do we have the will in this administration? I think the answer is yes, but do we have the will in this administration to go around the regulatory, the environmental regulations that make it very, very difficult to mine anything, and then very, very difficult to actually produce the rare earth material, right? The actual production. So it's going to be interesting to see whether this takes off or not. It's one thing to find all this in the ground. There are plenty of reserves, by the way, in Europe, in Scandinavia in particular, other reserves in the United States. The question is, will you actually do something about it, right? Right now, there's a startup, Vulcan Elements, that has just raised $65 million to increase production of the rare earth magnets. It's a North Carolina-based company valued around $250 million, led by Brad Gustner, and we will see. We'll see again if this is how real this is, right? And whether they are able to actually set up manufacturing facilities that can take rare earth materials, refine them, and ultimately turn them into the material necessary for magnets. Vulcan has opened a pilot manufacturing facility in Durham, North Carolina. It's made initial magnets for military and commercial clients. It says it doesn't use any material, equipment, or software from China, so only U.S. made or from allies. And the new funding they just got, the $65 million that they raised, is to build a large-scale facility that could produce hundreds of metric tons of magnets annually within a couple of years, and thousands by the end of this decade. So again, there's a lot of investment, a lot of efforts, and this would be good. I mean, clearly, China's national security threat, and to have the entire U.S. defense industry reliant on China for its magnets and its motors and things like that is ridiculous and absurd and kind of scary. So to see that we're finding rare earth in the ground, and then that there's venture capital going into companies that are actually building facilities that can take that rare earth and do something with it, that's going to be substantial. Again, the mid-stage, I haven't seen much written about. That is, you mine the thing, and then you take the materials and make magnets of them. Okay, those are the two ends. But the middle is refining. It's taking the raw rock and getting the rare earth material out of that rock. And that is a dirty, difficult, it's not difficult scientifically, it's manufacturing-wise, but it's a dirty process. And it would be interesting to see if the United States is ready to invest in the manufacturing capabilities to take rare earth rocks and turn them into rare earth metals that can then be made into magnets and motors and everything else. Whew, okay, wow, over an hour now. All right. Let's see, remind you, we've got quite a few questions, but there's room for more. We are about 150 short of our second hour target, and we're now into the second hour. So please consider asking a question, supporting the show, and being engaged. Please consider that. You get to ask anything, and I'll answer to the best of my ability. All right, this is really interesting. You know, a lot of people have talked about UBI as being a solution for people who are poor and struggling. if you just give them an extra $1,000 a month, or you just give them a check, then that allows them potentially to go start a business. Maybe it allows them to invest more in their children. Maybe it allows them to get an education, or to invest in their education, in their own education, and improve their place in the world. And there's, of course, been a lot of debate about this. Is this the case? There's, is $1,000 a month, let's say, $12,000 a year additional, just cash payment, no strings attached. You can do whatever you want with the money. Is this beneficial to America's so-called social ills? And a lot of people, particularly in Silicon Valley, some libertarians, some conservatives, you remember what's his name ran on this in the Democratic primary, I forget his name. There've been people really pushing this UBI kind of thing. Anyway, there's been a study now. Researchers with a nonprofit Open Research, this was in the Wall Street Journal today, or I think today, maybe over the weekend. Research from the nonprofit Open Research and several universities ran a randomized control trial to test the impact of a cash transfer on lower income working age Americans. These are working age Americans, right? One group received $1,000 a month for 3 years. $1,000 a month for 3 years. $36,000. No strings attached. The other were paid $50 a month to participate as a control group. Open Research says that the study showed that parents improved their parenting practices and made meaningful investments in their children and themselves. And this is a reading for the Wall Street Journal. But drill down, and the findings are uninspiring. Those who received the $1,000 payments did report better parenting behavior in surveys, though they may have been more inclined to say this because they were receiving free money. They also spent more money on their children. On the other hand, they reported that their children experienced more developmental difficulties and stress than the control group. The authors suggest that parents received cash might simply have been more attentive to their children's problems than those in the control group. Notably, while the transfer payments reduced parents' self-reported stress levels during the first year of the study, the effects were short-lived and dissipated by the second year, the researchers write. The handouts also did not have a meaningful effect on most educational outcomes measured in school administrative records, including attendance, disciplinary actions, or repeating a grade. Illinois children whose parents received free cash had worse grades, although this negative effect was not statistically significant after researchers adjusted for other factors. The payments also did not affect characteristics of home environment, child food security, exposure to homelessness, or parental satisfaction. Nor did they increase the probability of parents having another child, which corroborates other studies that found cash payments don't increase fertility rates. The researchers reported last year that the cash transfers increased healthcare utilization, including hospital and emergency care, but this produced no measurable effects on physical health outcomes. Recipients also worked less. They got free money, so they worked less. Equivalent to roughly 8 fewer days in the previous year. Yet Open Research touts that, quote, average household income was roughly $6,100 higher for recipients than control participants, including the transfer amount. So notice, they got $12,000 a year. They basically reduced the amount of work they did by $6,000, so their income actually only went up by $6,000. Payments led people to work less. The results meshed with other evidence that guaranteed annual income isn't the path to upward mobility. It might even make mobility less likely. Increasing incentives to work and become less dependent on government is a better way to help the poor rise. Yeah, good for the Wall Street Journal for putting that, and good for the conclusion. That's absolutely right. I mean, UBI, all this shows is, well, it shows a number of things, but one of the things it shows is the fact that the left constantly rejects and negates and pretends is not true. And that is that a lot of poverty is caused by the behavior of those who are poor. That poverty, to a large extent, is caused by the behavior of those who are poor. That they have some responsibility for it. Now, I don't think complete responsibility, because some of it is a consequence of really, really, really bad education, right? Really, really, really bad education, particularly in the inner cities. I mean, the horrors of education in the inner cities is just stunning. It's just stunning. And how little education these kids get, so they get trapped in a cycle of poverty. Now, of course, add to that the fact that welfare itself institutionalizes people into poverty, and everything else that is associated with that. But if you give people $12,000 a year, you're rewarding them for being poor. And it doesn't incentivize them to go out and work harder or to start a business or anything like that. It just rewards them to work less. And that makes complete sense, given, if I will, the mentality of those who are already poor. And those who are already poor are probably already getting a lot of welfare. They're already dependent on the state. So you're making them even more dependent on the state. You're not helping them. You're actually hurting them. I mean, the best thing you could do for the poor is close their public schools. I think this is where education saving accounts are the most valuable, and I know people are horrified by this, are the most valuable, is to the inner city poor, is break the government monopoly over education of poor kids and give parents options. And in the short run, subsidize it. In the long run, phase out that subsidy. But in the short run, just getting those kids out of government schools, God, the number of lives that saves is just unbelievable. And opposing that is just horrible. And then the second thing that needs to be done is get them off of welfare. Wean them off of welfare. Start taking welfare away from them. And of course, hopefully, you do that at the same time as you're deregulating and cutting taxes and facilitating massive job creation. But yes, it's exact opposite. It's the exact opposite. You want to create incentives for work, not the other way around. You want to create incentives for work. Mary Elaine says The Beautiful Tree by James Tooley, which is a fabulous book, which shows private schools in the worst slums in the world. The difference is that people in the slums of Calcutta and in Lagos in Nigeria, they have never been dependent on the state. They don't have welfare states there. They're just poor. So they already taking responsibility for their own lives at whatever level they can. The problem with the poor in America that is different is they are now dependent on the state. And that shapes your mentality, that shapes your attitude. So if you just did away with government schools, they wouldn't know what to do. They just wouldn't know what to do. So you have to wean them off of the state dependency. And I think, education saving accounts is a way to wean them off state dependency and then shrink those saving accounts over time to get rid of state involvement in education completely. All right, that is the news for August 11th, for Monday, August 11th. We will turn to our super chat in a second. Let me just thank, we got some very, very generous stickers. Armin, who I met in person. Armin was here in Lisbon on vacation, same time I was here. And we ended up having coffee, and it was delightful. It was really, really good. I got to know him. I mean, I've talked to him on the phone once, or Zoom. I think we did a Zoom call once. And he's on the chat here, being very generous towards the Yaron Brook Show. He's been a monthly supporter. But we got to sit down and spend an hour and talk, and it was a lot of fun. So thank you, Amin, for joining me for coffee. It was a delight. Amin did €200, which is fantastic. Thank you, Amin. That got us over the second hour goal. So thank you. Really appreciate that. And have a great rest of your trip. Amin is now elsewhere in Portugal. Wes, $50. Wes almost always every day comes in with the $50. RDF, thank you for the sticker that just came in. Let's see, we had more stickers. There's Wes. We had Bonnie. Thank you, Bonnie. Let's see, thank you, Stephen Hopper. Thank you, Jeffrey Miller. I appreciate that. Let's see. Yes, thank you, Jonathan. And thank you, Gian. And let's see, did I miss anybody? I think I got everybody. Yeah, I think I got everybody. All right, so thank you, guys. You too can support the show we're a listener-supported show completely. So you too can support the show and become a value for value, a trader with me by coming in and doing a sticker or asking a question. And I answer all the questions and I read all the comments that you put into a super chat. So please consider doing that. If you're on Twitter right now, you can jump over and a bunch of people on Twitter. Yeah, there's about 160 people on Twitter. Come over to YouTube and you too can get in on the chat and on the support of the show. Thank you, Esoteric Economy, for the sticker. Let's see. We have three sponsors of the show. We have Hendershot Wealth. Hendershot Wealth has a product to reduce and dramatically defer your capital gains taxes, the tax payments you have to make. Deferral makes a big difference. If you run the math, it's truly astounding how much deferral makes a difference. So you should check it out. Check out the interview I did with Robert Hendershot. It's on my channel on YouTube. Just check out, sponsors, a sponsor playlist, and check out the video. We might do a second video. There's another product they have which seems very interesting, also about reducing your taxes, creating financial instruments that allow you to reduce your taxes. Keeping more of your own money is a good thing, but done legally, right? And then let's see. Go to hendershotwealth.com, Hendershot with two T's, Hendershot with two T's, and .com/YBS. The Ayn Rand Institute wants to remind you that there is an app, the Ayn Rand Institute app, which has all of Leonard Peikoff's courses. It has a ton of Ayn Rand material, lectures, interviews, written content. It's just an amazing. It has Ayn Rand University courses. It's just an amazing tool to have in your pocket and to help you with your education in objectivism and it's just fun. So check it out. You can download it from the App Store for Apple or for Google. You can access the App Store on AynRand.org/start here, AynRand.org/start here. Get the Ayn Rand Institute app. It's a must on everybody who's interested in Ayn Rand, who's studying her ideas, has to have this. It's such an amazing tool. And then finally, Alex Epstein. Alex Epstein is, the leading voice in the world on issues related to energy, environmentalism, climate change, the electric grid, drill baby drill, all of that. You need to check out Alex's Substack. The information there is priceless. You will learn so much about what's going on in the world, about what the real issues are, about the importance of fossil fuel, for example, and how, wind and solar, they're kind of cute, but there's a lot of mythology around them, and ultimately they're unreliable and incredibly expensive, in spite of the numbers you hear thrown around, bantied around. So check out Alex. And sign up to free Substack, alexepstein.substack.com, alexepstein.substack.com. All right, and finally, I'll just remind you to become monthly contributors. Monthly contributors, best kind from my perspective, because it's I know what's coming in. As I'll remind you, this show couldn't exist without you guys, and that's a reality. It's not just a fantasy. I couldn't just do this as a hobby. This is what I do for a living, and it is your support that makes this show possible, and if you value the show, if you get something out of the show, please express that value in support. Go to patreon.com, Yaron Brook Show, and sign up. I guess Gnubish, or whatever his name is, should really support the show, given how much time he wastes here and how much effort he puts into the chat. He obviously gets values here, and I've never seen him do. He hasn't done a super chat, and I don't think he's a monthly supporter of the show, but he really should be, given the amount of time and the amount of value he gets. And finally, if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. You should subscribe. That way you'll be announced. We'll let you know every time the show goes live. You'll be able to see my short videos and my other videos. If you're not a member, become a member. Members get access to videos that are members only. There's a whole series of videos that are pretty interesting, I think, that you can access if you're a member. Just do a $5 membership just to get access to those videos. On Patreon, sign up for a significant monthly contribution, but on the membership stuff, $5 is plenty in order to access the videos. That's it. Let's jump into, and don't forget, you can still ask questions, and we can reach the third hour goal, because we might actually creep into that third hour. We'll see how it goes here with the questions. So keep the questions coming, and keep supporting the Yaron Brook Show. If it's a value to you, don't support it if it's not a value to you. All right, let's take a look, and then I'll just remind you, we're good. That's true. Trolls don't pay a toll. He's just here to piss people off. All right. At least he doesn't. This is the thing about some people who are here. I don't mind the ones that don't pretend to be objectivists. If he's just a leftist who doesn't understand, who doesn't get it, who's clueless, then so be it. If he really becomes abusive and distracting, then I'll block him. But he's not pretending to be an objectivist. He's just one among millions out there who just are clueless. All right. Did somebody say Scott made an appearance? I should block Scott again. All right, if he makes an appearance again, let me know, and I'll try to block him. All right, here's the new handle that he has, whatever that is. Remo, I am troubled by the last 2 episodes of My Country. My Country is a Korean drama that I recommended a while ago. I haven't seen it in a long time. So, the hero who saved his old friend, who had betrayed him so often, seemed altruistic and unjustified to me. Thoughts? I don't remember the details, so you'll have to forgive me, because I watched it quite a while ago, and the reality is that I don't retain the details of these shows and movies like I used to. So I don't remember the details. But here's the big picture I see in this. If I remember right, kind of the theme of My Country. What the hero comes to the conclusion by the end of the series is that what is important is not his country. Indeed, he is redefining what his country actually means. And indeed, that much of his struggles throughout the series were ill-construed, in a sense that his country, as a country, was always going to betray him. And that he owed it, and this is what I liked about the show, he owed it no patriotism. He owed it no loyalty. And that his country, the thing he was loyal to, the thing that he cared about, the thing that he really cherished, the thing that now replaced his kind of vigorous patriotism, were his friends, were the people he loved, were the people he surrounded himself with. I think he viewed his friend's betrayals as the betrayals of the state, as the betrayals of the situation they were in, as betrayals of the circumstances, but a really fundamental betrayal of the system. And at the end of the movie, he rejects the system. He's walking away from the system, the end of the series. And he's embracing the idea of my country being the friends that he has, the people that he loves, and they're going to set off and they're going to detach themselves from the world around them, from the corruption of politics, the corruption of the regime that they're under, and the corruption of the generals and the politicians and the king and all of that. And they're going to embrace their small community and live for the sake of their small community and walk away from this kind of patriotism to a cause he doesn't really believe in, and patriotism that he always had towards something that was fundamentally, inherently corrupt, which was the Korean regime at the time. So that's the way I see it. So he values his old friends' friendship and what they meant to each other and the values they represent for each other more than the politics of it. He forgives him because he understands that they were both captured by this false ideology of patriotism to a state that didn't deserve it. All right. So I'm sorry, I can't remember it better than that, but that's my best interpretation given my memory. All right, not your average algorithm. Did you see ICE agents tearing up that Mexican restaurant, ripping the food out of the fridge, trashing records, breaking glass? It's like they've been ordered to create an atmosphere of fear. Kristallnacht all over again. I didn't see that, so I missed those images. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all. They are thugs. They are, what they do is thuggish. It's basically outside any kind of reasonable law. This is the abandonment of any kind of objective law, rounding people up in the streets of America, walking into businesses and just grabbing people. Because they did the equivalent of speeding. It's just in treating them like animals. Pretending that these are not human beings. And again, we're not talking about criminals, we're not talking about gang members, we're talking about just people who are working for a living, paying taxes, and trying to live in America because they value living in America over where they came from. And we're treating them like monsters. And what Trump has created is a militarized internal security force that now has a massive budget that has been increased dramatically to militarize further and in a sense, ultimately, to be the stormtroopers of whoever lands up being the leader of the new America that rounds people up and sends them to camps. It's just horrific. And I don't know what more to say about what's going on today with ICE than what I've already said, and how disgusting and horrific and and just abusive it is, and how un-American. It's fundamentally un-American. Fundamentally un-American. All right, a reminder to anybody who's watching who is not a subscriber, please consider subscribing to Yaron Brook Show. It would be great. And also, don't forget to like the show, comment in the chat, share the show. Any kind of interaction helps with the algorithm. So liking the show helps a lot. Just press that like button. It costs you nothing. It costs you zero. Michael says, I suspect we would be significantly more cynical and depressed and closer to dictatorship if Ayn Rand hadn't existed. As bad as things are today, they're still so much better because of her. I think that's absolutely right. I mean, it's not hard to tell that. It's just each one of us is better off as an individual. And the fact that there's a bunch of us who as individuals are better off means that the world is better off. And if you extrapolate that to the founders of Silicon Valley that read her and were inspired, to everybody else who's been inspired by her to do great things. The world is by far a better place because of Ayn Rand, and has been a better place because of Ayn Rand since she started writing. Since she started writing. Christos. Emergency on immigration in LA and now in Washington. I think we are witnessing the downfall of America and descending to authoritarianism. As a prediction, would you think EU or US is more likely to see a dictatorship first? It really is hard to tell. I mean, I think because the United States as a single unity, as a single unit is a political entity, one political entity versus the EU, which is multiple political entities, it's probably more likely in the United States than in the EU. But you've already got Orban in Hungary, who's the equivalent of very close to a dictator, not completely, but close. Of course, Putin and Belarus, Russia and Belarus are European countries, arguably. They've got dictatorship. Whether a EU country is going to head towards dictatorship, I think European countries are too fragmented to go that route. And so is the United States right now. That's the one thing going for us. But I've never seen so much erosion so quickly of basic liberties in the United States as this administration is doing. FDR was bad. I think what Trump is doing is worse. It's not even like the Smoot-Hawley tariffs, his tariffs, because these tariffs are clearly used for corruption and favoritism and cronyism in ways that, on a scale that I don't think has ever existed in this country. Everything is, again, ruled by emotion and by everything is top down. By the way, the best way to deal with trolls like Gnubberish is just ignore him. Like the fact that some of you actually engage with him just feeds him. So just ignore him. I mean, he's obviously just seeking attention. There's no other reason he would be here. Mary Aline, no one other than ARI is speaking up for business in regard to golden shares, export taxes, antitrust, tariffs, etc. I think it's because they've all been taught for so long that capitalism and profits are evil. I think that's a big part of it. A big part of it is just the collectivism. It's good for the country. I mean, how can they speak up against this stuff? It's good for the country. It's good for the common good. And then, there's some free market thinkers that are speaking up against this. But it's also, I think people are overwhelmed. Like Scott Lincecum is speaking up against the golden shares and all this other stuff. But it's just very few voices. And most of the people are they're overwhelmed by Trump, but also they've kind of accepted Trump. I mean, they voted for him. And the people on the left are not going to defend business. I mean, what's surprising is how vigorously the people on the left are anti-tariffs. I hope we can remind them of that when they get into power and they want to use tariffs against us. They want to reinstate them. But yeah, it's a lone voice out there. I mean, it's not just that. Think of all the antitrust cases. Who's defending Google and Apple against the horrific antitrust cases and Facebook that are being brought against them? Only ARI, and maybe there are a few other voices out there, because things like antitrust are just given. Monopolies are bad, and Google's a monopoly. That's obvious. On economic freedom, there's almost no voices out there, and nobody really cares, right? Economic freedom stopped becoming a sexy issue. I don't know that it ever was, but among people on the so-called right, it just stopped becoming a sexy issue, and the only thing they care about is the cultural stuff, which they're wrong on as well, right? Which is a disaster as well. It's a very, very sad time to be in America. All right, let's see. Liam, is it possible humanity wipes itself out before objectivism takes hold? It's certainly possible. I think it's unlikely, but it is possible. I still think there's too much good in the world. And in spite of all this negativity, there's just too much good in the world for people to actually wipe themselves out. But it's certainly possible. I don't think the probability is zero. That Doodle Bunny, is Putin a nihilist or a power-lusting mystic? He's a power-lusting mystic. He thrives in power. He's clearly a mystic. He articulates the mysticism over and over again. And he's a dictator. This is what he loves. This is what he does. Yeah. Now, every power-lusting mystic has an element of nihilism as part of it. So I don't think they're mutually exclusive. Not your average algorithm. Is anti-Semitism worse today than anti-black racism? I don't know. Probably right now it is. I don't think generally in American history or in the last 100 years, but certainly right now I think maybe it is. Just because it unites both the left, which is typically not anti-black, elements of the left, big elements on the left, and then the right, which is also anti-black, is now particularly anti-Semitic. They're putting their anti-blackness agenda on the back burner and focusing on the anti-Semitism. So I think yes to right now. Jonathan, should jury duty be mandatory? I mean, it's an interesting question. I think it's one of the few things that comes with citizenship that should be mandatory. Again, I don't think everybody should be a citizen. I think there should be citizens exams, tests. So I don't think you have to become a citizenship to gain all your rights. But one of the things that comes with being a citizen is participating in the legal system of the country you have chosen to be a part of. I guess if you're born in America, in my world, you could choose not to be a citizen and still live in America and have most of the rights. You just you couldn't vote, a few things you couldn't do. So I think it should be in that sense. I mean, I'm open to arguments that it should be completely voluntary and paid for, more lucrative than it is, so I don't have a strong opinion about this. Michael, one of the arguments against allowing the Nazis to march in Skoki was that they don't have a right to try and persuade other people to throw me in an oven. Is this legitimate? No, I mean, it's not. You do have a right to argue for that. But the only legitimate argument against not allowing the Nazis to march in Skoki is that nobody should be allowed to march in the streets, blocking traffic, interrupting people's ability to move and move about their day, and obstructing people's peace. So once you allow some people to march, you have to allow all people to march. And the fact that the people marching have horrific, ugly, disgusting ideas is not an excuse not to let them. Hopper Campbell, Part one, you say leftist nihilistic movements are not sustainable governing strategies. But if you look at history, right-wing dictatorships tend to not last as long. The fascism of Franco, Mussolini, and Hitler fizzled out fairly quickly, whereas communism regime lasted 100 years. Yeah, but I think that's a false dichotomy. That is, I'm not saying that a fascist program like Mussolini's or Hitler's is where we're heading or what is sustainable. Look, all authoritarianism ultimately is not sustainable. All authoritarianism ultimately is going to fall apart. But the difference with first of all, the difference with the current left and communism is that the current left is far less ideological, has no ideological structure to it. It doesn't have communism. Communism was a structure. It gave it a program. The current left has no program, no structure. It's just nihilistic. It's just, and I don't think anybody goes for that. It's why the Khmer Rouge lasted a lot less, a lot shorter period of time than communism in China or in the Soviet Union. And even they didn't last that long. And at the end of the day, look, Mussolini lasted quite long. Franco lasted quite long. Franco lasted more than Mussolini, and Hitler only lasted 12 years. But that's because he went to war. So it's suicidal for these regimes to go to war. Franco survived a lot longer because he didn't go to war. And Mussolini came to power a lot earlier. Didn't really engage in that many wars, not in Europe itself, and only lost and disappeared because he joined Hitler and was wrapped up in Hitler's defeat. But the point is that I don't think that, what Leonard Pico, for example, is arguing, what I would argue with regard to the United States, is not that we become like Mussolini or Hitler, though not that we become that kind of fascist, that we become fascist around a different type of M2, a different type of ideology, and that ideology is religion. And religion has lasted a very long time. And religious authoritarians have lasted a very long time. So, and look, all authoritarians die in the end. And woke is not an integrating ideology. Woke is a disintegrating ideology. It's by its very nature, it's disintegrating. Everything about it is disintegrating. It's a D2 if there's ever been a D2. It's nihilistic to the core. It is disintegrated to the core. And it can never be a governing strategy. Communism is an integrated philosophy as compared to woke. And that's why it could survive for longer. And we're also talking about communism in the Soviet Union, in Russia. We're talking about America. What is the ruling ideology that could win in America? Woke cannot win in America. Communism cannot win in America. Fascism, particularly wrapped around religion and the flag, can win in America. How long it survives, I don't know. But it can win. It can destroy what America is. Woke can chip away at it. Woke can slowly chip away, and woke, in a sense, creates the opening for the right. But woke in itself is not a governing ideology. It immediately falls apart. Right? Yeah, the Khmer Rouge killed, I've talked about this many, many times, right? They killed a lot of people, but they couldn't survive because they're so nihilistic. All they did was kill everybody. And they came to power because there was a very weak regime in Cambodia. They didn't need the consent of the people, but in America, Khmer Rouge cannot come to power in America. Be real. So the real threat in America is religion and nationalism. They are much more appealing to a significant majority of Americans. Not majority, significant number of Americans. Whereas woke appeals to very few people and has never appealed to more than very few people. James had a part two. If Hitler had invaded England instead of Russia, could he have won the war? No, I don't think he could have won the war in the end. In the end, he was going to lose. He was going to lose because his economy was crumbling from within for the same reason ultimately Russia will lose the war in Ukraine if Ukraine can sustain itself. Russia is, Hitler, Germany economy was crumbling because of the war effort, because it was statist, and he would have had a very hard time consolidating his victory, and then Russia would have ultimately gone to war with Hitler. Stalin and Hitler couldn't have survived in the same continent at the same time, and they would have bled each other to death, and ultimately maybe they both would have failed, and maybe we would have had a shortcut. A lot of people would have died. A lot of people would have died. A lot more people would have died, but we would have had a shortcut to the elimination of both fascism and communism. Andrew, Rand's cook, a devout Christian who often talked religion with her, reports that in her last weeks, the cook returned from a trip and went to visit Rand at the hospital. Rand quipped, "This will not be a deathbed conversion." Yeah, I mean, Rand had a sense of humor, and she could deal with people, who disagreed with her, who had fundamental disagreements with her. She didn't expect everybody around her to be an objectivist. And Rand was extraordinarily benevolent, And Ian says, I was listening to Andy Bernstein complain about the left, and he kept saying they are all Marxist. I think the mainstream modern left is more postmodern, Rawlsian, egalitarian than Marxist, rather than Marxist thoughts. Yeah, I mean, I really disagree on this with Andy. I mean, obviously Marx is an incredible influence in the background, but I don't believe the modern left is Marxist. I mean, I think that is Marx was much better than these people, in a sense. Marx actually had a comprehensive theory. He actually had a view of history. He actually had and they reject, these people, the modern left rejects many of Marx's most fundamental philosophical assertions. The deterministic history is deterministic. The essential nature of classes, which they reject. They don't buy the classes anymore. It's more about race and gender and sexuality and identity and intersectionality than it is about class one way or the other. The whole Hegelian epistemology and methodology and determinism is absent from today's. I mean, today's left is postmodern. Indeed, today's left is the left that came out of the fact that the leftist intellectuals of the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s understood that Marx was a failure, that Marx's predictions were not coming true, that Marxism as a systematic philosophy and systematic ideology had failed, and it came up with something different. They abandoned all theory. They basically abandoned any kind of reality and any kind of objectivity and any kind of attempt at science. Marx claimed that he was scientific. They abandoned science. They abandoned, somebody says anti-conceptual. Yeah, they're completely anti-conceptual. And, so they're a different creature. They're much more nihilistic, and they are much more disintegrated. They're not Marxist. I think James Lindsay is wrong about this. A good guy to have on this is Nikos. Nikos, of course, grew up and was heavily exposed, and for a time was himself a Marxist and a communist. He studied Marx. He knows Marxism. He studied the New Left. And I think Nikos makes a really good case that the New Left is not Marxist. They're bad. They're worse than Marxist. In many ways, they're worse than Marxist, if that is possible. And I don't know, I don't know that they're even Rawlsian egalitarians. I mean, Rawlsian egalitarians is better than what they are today. They're worse than Rawlsian egalitarians. They've abandoned kind of the Rawlsian way of thinking about egalitarian. They just want equal outcome. They just want to smash. They just want to destroy. They want to bring everybody down in a way that even Rawls, I think, would find horrific. Mirko. Hey, Mirko. See you soon. Yes, looking forward to it. I wrote you a list of things to see and do, including a meal in the oldest Michelin star in Italy. We need to expand objectivism here in Italy. I agree. What about the 3-star Michelin restaurant in Modena that I really like? I haven't been there in years and years and years. I'd love to go back there. The most famous restaurant in Modena. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts about which restaurant and why. All right. Michael. Does JD Vance deserve any credit for shaming Europeans over their free speech restrictions? Does JD Vance deserve any credit? Well, I mean, if it wasn't JD Vance, he makes some of the points. Some of the points were completely out of line and wrong, but some of the points he makes are really good and true. But because it's JD Vance, who has no respect for free speech, period, it comes off as empty and ridiculous. So if somebody who actually had a respect for free speech made many of those same arguments, they would resonate. But given that it's Vance, it's meaningless. Michael, I've never heard the word genocide thrown around so recklessly in my life. To use that term to describe Israel's war of self-defense is factually false and morally obscene. Absolutely. And it's being used by people all over the place. It's used by Israel, by Israelis, and by Israeli journalists, by Israeli commentators. It is horrific. It's anti-conceptual. It's a rejection of reality. But it is what it is. This is. Liam, can you block this gnubberish troll? Just block him yourself, and then you don't have to see his stuff. And ignore him. If you do those two things, you're safe. Tom, Wall Street Journal headline, the U.S. marches towards state capitalism with American characteristics. Is that deliberate perversion, banner, or just misunderstood? I think that's a great headline, by the way. It's basically saying, I mean, state capitalism with Chinese characteristics is what China has claimed that they are doing, or the left has claimed China is doing, and the supporters of China have claimed what China is doing. So I like this title. It is. We're marching towards state capitalism. Get rid of the capitalism. That doesn't belong there, but with American characteristics. But people don't understand what capitalism is. So state capitalism is a term people use all the time. But this play off of China is really good because at the end of the day, it's exactly what's going on here. We're moving towards statism that is with an American tinge versus a Chinese tinge, but we're mimicking China. Since COVID, China has been winning hands down. We copied them in COVID, and we're copying them. And Trump is copying, and Biden and Trump have copied them economically. Trump and Biden have copied them in the response to COVID, and then copied them in the response to just economics. Frank says, do these restaurants start at $30 for an appetizer? Frank, yeah, they don't take $30. $30 you can't get maybe the bread and the knife and fork you get for $30. All right, Thomas Massengel. Any good economic history books in favor of capitalism? Ex-child labor going away under capitalism and then government passing laws against child labor. Yeah, on that one, there's a really good book. There was an example by, oh God. There's a good book by an economist at Texas, Ben Powell. Ben Powell. Check out Ben Powell on, let me see if I can, Ben Powell on Amazon. So Ben has a book called Out of Poverty, Sweatshops in the Global Economy, that documents all of that and makes that case. Out of Poverty, Sweatshops in the Global Economy. It was published by Cambridge Studies in Economics, Choice of Society. He's also got an excellent book on immigration, Wretched Refuse. He's very good on the kind of child labor sweatshop stuff. And in the sweatshop stuff, I'm pretty sure he covers child labor. So that's an example. Off the bat, I don't have other books that I can recommend, but there are plenty of books out there. Not as many books on economic history as I'd like. That relate to this. I mean, there's the book I said about corporations in the 20th century, which was very good on economic history, and it was generally pro-capitalism. All right, Michael, engineers solve many problems because they use reason. People use more reason when building Legos than when they build social systems. Yeah, that's true. That's where they're compartmentalized in certain aspects of their lives and certain functions that they commit. They're dedicated to reason, they're dedicated to logic, and then once they get out of that realm, they completely abandon it. I just have to comment on this. Sasha says, about the kill journalist, can't believe how integrity quickly disappears when you have to defend your side. Not being able to see outside your own subjectivity is sad, and I'm not Arab or Muslim. Yeah, but if you'd followed me, if you knew what I've been saying for the last 20 years, then you'd know that what I just said is based on a mountain of writing and thought and theory regarding morality, regarding the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, regarding how to fight wars, the morality of war. Check out my essay on just war theory versus American self-defense. Just put just war theory in my name. It's available online for free. I can back up everything that I said today and back it up in spades with hours and hours and hours. It has nothing to do with my side versus their side. And if you think my support of killing a journalist is, first of all, he's not a journalist. He was Hamas paid operative. But even if he was a journalist, if you think that's bad, you should read some of the other stuff that I say about how to fight wars. Wars are not civilized affairs. Wars are about destroying the enemy and doing whatever it takes to win. And I say whatever it takes to win. So I'm consistent. You might not agree with me, that's fine. But I am consistent, so my integrity is complete. Ask anybody here on this chat who has followed me for the last few decades if I have not been consistent about these things and applied it far beyond the Israeli-Palestinian conflict to other conflicts, because it's not about my side versus your side. It's about the good guys beating the bad guys and what it takes to win and what you need to do in order to win. And again, I've written theoretical articles about this. If you disagree with something I've written, let me know. Debate me on the actual content. But don't doubt my integrity, because it's just you don't know enough about me. If you did, you'd know that the one thing I have is integrity, and the one thing I have is consistency. That Doodle Bunny, did the Founding Fathers know the power of man's mind? Since they couldn't see the Industrial Revolution, where did their passion come from for forming a system based on radical individualism? Well, I mean, it came from the Enlightenment. It came from the application of reason to science and the application of reason to political thinking. They saw it during the Enlightenment. They couldn't conceive of it vis-a-vis economics. They couldn't conceive of it thoroughly, systematically, with regard to what do you call it? With regard to property rights, and so their individualism was limited, unfortunately. But it was they are the product of the Enlightenment, and they were heavily influenced by John Locke and Newton and everybody who followed them and all the thinkers of the Enlightenment. That is the source of their individualism. But it's not as deep, and it's not as systematic, and it's not as consistent as Ayn Rand's, because they didn't see the Industrial Revolution. So they have some appreciation of man's mind, but not complete. Frank, is a suicide bomber someone with no free will? No, they have free will. They chose to be a suicide bomber. That's their free will in action. How is Drill Baby Drill working out? Michael asks. They're setting up they're doing away with all the restrictions, with all the limitations on Drill Baby Drill. But the actual drilling has to be motivated by the incentives of the oil companies. And right now, oil prices are not high enough to incentivize them to drill massively. But from the perspective of getting rid of all the restrictions, the limitations, the constraints on actually drilling, they're making it possible to drill baby drill in the future when the incentives are aligned. Right now, it's too expensive to drill. James Taylor says, how long until altruism is explicitly named and challenged by the mainstream? No one even uses the term except us. I don't know. 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, it's hard to tell. I don't know. I wish I did. Esoteric Dichotomy says, have a good day, Yaron. Thanks for your show. Thank you. Really appreciate the support. Robert says, if you all want to be able to post member milestone chat messages like this one once a month, join the YouTube channel Members Only, baby. Yeah, become a member, baby. Frank, have you ever seen James Gardner film Cash McCall? He buys up businesses to resell them for a profit, sort of like the DeVito guy. If not, look it up. I think I've seen it. Of course, the book is amazing. There's a book called Cash McCall, which is really, really, really good. Highly recommend it. Nick, I worked in criminal defense in DC. Carjacking is a mandatory minimum sentence of 6 years, yet carjacking has gone up. Well, it went up in 2023, but it's since gone down, right? It's gone down in DC. It went down in 24, and it's gone down in 25 significantly. Do harsher sentences result in less crime? I think ultimately, yes, but first you have to arrest people. You have to have enough cops in the streets. You have to be willing to prosecute. You have to find the criminals. You have to use the police resources to find the criminals and prosecute them. And I think not enough of them are prosecuted. Too many of them think they can get away. But you might know more of the statistics in terms of how many of them do get away than I do. But and 6 years might not be enough. Carjacking should be a lot more than 6 years. Carjacking is physical violence against somebody. It's more than just property theft, because you're kicking somebody out of their car and you're threatening them. You should get 20 years for carjacking, in my view. 6 years is a joke. I mean, carjacking is life-threatening. So it should be 20 years at least. And I'm all for many of these things, throwing away the keys. Jonathan, the Constitution explicitly bans export taxes. Well, there you go. And yet that's what we just got. They won't call it that. It's a kickback to the government. I don't know what you call that. Andrew, underscoring your point regarding Rand dealing with non-objectivists, she reportedly said to a socialist publisher, I don't care about your politics as long as you're good at what you do and do as I say. Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree with her. I don't question the guy who cuts my hair's politics. I don't question the grocery store's politics. I don't question the people I interact with politics. If I discover the fascists or communists, I'll switch. But short of that, Mark, the modern left is traceably Marxist. Even the Anas al-Sharif case, I'm not sure what case this is, proves this. Inflexible doctrinaire support for PAL, sanctioned evil, divorce when. Well, you see, I don't think that much of the modern left is. I mean, sure, you can find cases. And look, Mamdani in New York certainly, it brings up flashes of Marxism. But Marxism is an ideology with a philosophical context. And if you look at that ideology and you look at its assumptions and its belief set, the modern left rejects most of those assumptions and most of those belief sets. And for the worse. And they're much worse, and if they ever got into power, they would be a lot more damaging. I just don't think they'll ever get into power. But they would be a lot more damaging. And they have been damaging. Look at what they did in San Francisco and LA when they got into minor positions, even minor positions. I don't think they can get to national power. I don't think they can rule America. I don't think Americans would vote for them. I've said it now for years and years and years and years. I've been proven right for the most part. Nobody takes me serious. Nobody believes this, but it's then they are zeros. They are D2s, and I agree with Leonard Peikoff about the inability of D2s to ultimately govern. Again, they can have a short term. They can do a lot of damage, but I don't think they can do as much damage as Pol Pot, others have done in places like that. I don't think they can do that in America. America's a different case. All right, guys. Thank you. If anybody wants to get us to our third hour target, it's $51 to get there. That would be amazing. Let's see. Yeah, so thank you all. Thank you all, the super chatters. Don't forget to become Patreon contributors to the Yaron Brook Show. I will see you all tomorrow. Tomorrow will be at 12 o'clock noon Eastern time. So tomorrow will be early. And I'll have a hard stop 2 hours in because I'm going out to dinner with my wife after that. But I will see you at 12 o'clock noon Eastern time. And we will go from 12 to 2. Have a great rest of your week. See you soon.